in the 1970s, went to Russia. It was then, as some of you are old enough to remember, the Soviet Union and the Iron Curtain and the Cold War. And it was actually maybe worse than it is now under Putin. It's debatable. But it was closed to the West. And back in the 70s, Graham got in there. It was the first evangelical crusade. He brought one of his crusades, went to Moscow, went to Leningrad, whatnot. But in order to do that, he collaborated with the World Council of Churches, which was by the evangelical franchise in the 70s considered utterly heretical, just like a complete compromise. The pictures of him that were coming over the world news of hanging out with these robed, big bearded Orthodox ministers and praying and whatnot. And the very conservative, very narrowly conservative evangelical franchise back in America were aghast. And so he gets back, he's barely 5 minutes off the plane, and all of these evangelical leaders meet him and they begin to scold him. They're just like, how dare you, this. And then somebody says, Billy, do you realize what you've done? Do you know what you've done? You have set the church in America back 50 years. And Billy, big, lanky Billy, just hangs his head. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. It was fully my intent to set it back 2,000. I think you're doing it, Hope City. There was really three core marks of the early church. Lots of stuff we could highlight. It's been kind of I was a pastor for many years. I've been a professor, including having Jenny McGrew in your. Can you imagine having that? And I would just, could you do that thing you do in my class? So we had fun. Tons. She was just there a few months ago in one of my classes. She was in Calgary, and anytime I can get Jenny McGrew to do that thing she does, but I have made it basically since Roger McClellan said yes, my quest to understand what is the heart of the church, what is the core of the church, and I think it really comes down to three things, and I see them very much in you, Hope City. The one that has a culture of discipleship, like people grow. Like you grow here, right? Like it's like you don't really, it's not like anybody's bullying you or shaming you. You just don't have an option. Like it's a growth culture. So it's a culture, and part of that is, by the way, a really thriving community. You can't do this on your own. So it's like people who believe in you, they'll challenge you. Again, it's not in some kind of strident way. It's just like, come on, brother, sister, we can, let's go further. Let's do more. So it's a discipleship culture. That's a thriving church. It's a worship culture. Like what a hungry bunch of people you are. Like you just come hungry and you want, meet me again, Christ. Show up again. Show me your glory. Show me your presence. It's a worship culture. And the last thing is a mission culture. Like you care as much about the people out there as you do in here. You care deeply about the people in here because that's a discipleship culture. But you actually care about your neighbors and the community around about you. And like if you have those three things, then Hope City thrives, and that's a fundamental of a church. What I want to speak about this morning is the culture of mission. And every time I come here, and this is I think fourth time I've preached here, I say virtually the same thing, and it's this. I just come to sort of put fuel on what you're already doing. Like if I could just say yes and amen, and how about let's keep going. So it's not like occasionally I'll go to a church and it's like, man, I have to wake this up in this church. Like by the Spirit of God, I have to try to wake this up. There's nothing around the culture of discipleship, disciple of worship, or culture of worship, or culture of mission that needs waking here. It needs encouraging, maybe. That's it, right? Because you can get tired. So I want to speak to you about that, and I want to start with this story. If you have Mark 2, I had left my Bible back in Enderby, and so I've been hunting without a gun the whole weekend. And I'm not good with my phone, right? Is that up there? Mark 4:35, I think. Or somebody will have to, oh, here we go. So this is Jesus. They've had a pretty busy go of it in ministry. And it says, that day when evening came, Jesus said to his disciples, let us go over to the other side. Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There was also other boats with him. A furious squall came up and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, teacher, don't you care if we drown? He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, quiet, be still. Then the wind died down and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? They were terrified and asked each other, who is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him. This is the word of the Lord. As I said, 21 years of age, I began to follow Christ. So I'm going to give you my age now. It was 45 years ago. In that 45 years, I also spent 24 of them as a pastor and the last 13 as a professor of pastoral theology. So I, as I say, get to teach people like Jenny, so it's an incredible job. And in those 45 years, I honestly would not trade my worst day of being a Christ follower for my best day of being a pagan. Like, I wouldn't. But there's days I've wanted to kind of quit. Like, I don't know even what I mean by quit. Quit the church, quit ministry or something. Just got bone weary, got kind of worn out. And I just wanted to quit. There's a story about the comic genius Gracie Allen. Some of you are old enough to remember Gracie Allen. She was married to the also comic genius George Burns. And he played God in a movie way back. But they were a delightful couple. They were funny on and off stage. But Gracie particularly was a prankster. She loved to prank her friends. She was always doing the things, little surprises. And so, of course, it's coming back round, right? The chickens come home to roost. So she was always being pranked. She was leaving her apartment in L.A. one day, and as she was going out the door, the postman came and had a parcel for her. She's in a rush. She quickly opens it, and to her dismay is a baby alligator. Little thing snapping at her. She's like, what do I do with this? Throws it in the bathtub and forgets all about it. She comes home late that night, and the maid has come and gone, and the maid has left a note. Dear Mrs. Allen, I don't work in no house with an alligator. I should have told you this before I started, but I just didn't think it would come up. When I was especially in pastoral ministry, I had that, I don't know how many times I nearly wrote a letter like that to the chair of the board. Dear Mr. Chair, I don't work in no house with an alligator. Should have told you this before I started. Should have known it would have come up. So there's just days I've wanted to, whatever pack it in looked like, just enough of this. Surely some of you are with me on that one. But most of my 45 years of being a Christ follower, I've wondered what's over there. I wondered what more God has. In fact, now I'm in my later years. I turned 66 in a couple months. I'm more curious about what's over there than ever. That's how my wife's in our ministry, but her particular New Story community started. It's a thank you for your support of it. A ministry, a residency-based recovery ministry for Indigenous women. And it's not something normally you start in your 60s. But there's a sense of God, is there more? Do you know, one of the beautiful things about walking with the Lord Jesus is you can both be utterly satisfied and actually dissatisfied at the same time. You can be totally content with your life in Christ and say, but I want more, God. And he always has more. Let's go to the other side. Story in a book by Annie Dillard, a great writer. She tells about an English explorer by the name of James Taylor, who is not to be mistook for the American songwriter and singer James Taylor. But he was an explorer of Papua New Guinea back in the 20s and 30s. He goes to Papua New Guinea, he goes up into the highlands, and he meets his tribe, he befriends them after some wariness on their part, learns their language, and just before he leaves, he's with them quite a while, but before he leaves, he has the men come up to the top ridge of one of the mountains, and they clear about 100-foot, 20-foot wide, 100-foot long strip up of bush up there. They don't know what they're doing, why they're doing it, but they love this guy, so they do it. He leaves this village. 2 months later, he comes back in an airplane. The people in Papua New Guinea, this tribe, have never seen an airplane before. This is in 1930-something. He flies around the village. Sometimes they're in awe. He comes down and lands on the zone, the strip that he had the men cut. They come out, they're amazed, and so he spends some time with them again. As he's about to leave and get back in his plane several weeks later, this oldest man of the tribe comes out. He's just wizened. He's grizzled. He's gnarled up. This old man, he's braided himself a big coil of rope. So he's carrying this thing, and he proceeds to lash himself to the fuselage of the plane. His family is, what are you doing? What are you doing to stop it? And he says, you can't stop me. And what are you doing? He says, I need to know where this thing is going. I want to be that old man. I don't want to get to this place where there's not a desire and a longing and a knowing in my heart that Jesus actually has more. That he actually has. I want to be Caleb. Actually, the Lord put that in my heart when I was in my 20s, not long after I came to faith, Roger. He put in my heart, be a Caleb, who at 85 comes up to Joshua and says, you remember me. I'm just as strong now. I'm just as vigorous. And I want, and what does he ask for? All the young guys are like, I want that nice piece of, farmland. He says, I want the hill country, and I want to fight the giants that scared us off in the first place. I want to be that guy. Let's go to the other side. Let's go to the other side. Listen, I want to speak especially to the 60-plus crowd right now. You youngins can listen in too. If you want to listen, go ahead. But you can also, just go on a little mind wander. I want to speak to those people over 60 right now. Why not your best last? That's the nature of Jesus. Why not give your best last? You may not have the physical stamina. You may not, you may need a nap in the middle of the day. I get all that. But I'm talking about why not give the best of who you are, the best of your prayers, the best of your heart, the best of your giving now. Why slow down now? Karl Barth said, how dare, it's just impossible to think as a river approaches the edge of the falls that is somehow going to slide. It's going to race toward that. Why not race toward the things that Jesus has for you now? Let's go to the other side. Let's go there. Let's find out what's over there. Well, here's the thing, is these guys have no idea what's over there. You know what the next story is? Legion. The other side turns out to be Syria, literally. It's swine country. It's a tomb. And it's the most twisted, shattered human you've ever met, who nobody wants except Jesus. I think if he said, hey, let's go over tonight to Syria. You've heard the rumors of this guy so chock a block full of demons that all he does is run around naked, howling and cut himself, and they try to chain him up. Let's go on a little pastoral visit tonight. I don't think the guys are like, no, dude, come on. He doesn't tell them. He just says, let's go over there. I wonder what's over there. Now, the story I just read you, as I go over there, this horrible Category 4 storm comes up. Don't tell me Jesus didn't know that thing was brewing. I think when he started, he's like, I think it's one of those beautiful nights like last night. We got candy clouds. We've got, if you're out at Cultus Lake, it's a glassy surface. The mirroring of the mountains in the lake is perfect. There's not a ripple. A fish jumps, though, straight up out of the water, like not just a little, like a flip. I mean, just wide up and down. And these perfect ripple of concentric circles just go out. It's just like, it's a picture. And it's like that evening, and she's like, we've had a full day of ministry. Let's go over to the other side. And they're probably like, yeah, let's go on a little bit of an Ola day. Let's have a little picnic, eh? Let's go over there. And they're probably thinking, we're on a retreat. But there's this funny little phrase in Mark's gospel, and only Mark does this. And by the way, Mark is very sparing in his writing. He's the most bare bones of the writer. So whenever he starts to pile on words, pay attention, Pete. Pay attention if he's piling on words. He piles on words, and it says, and so they took Jesus, comma, just as he was, comma, along, and so the weight of that sentence is the disciples took charge. They're in charge now. And why wouldn't they be? They're fishermen. Jesus is a landlubber. He's a carpenter. He's from Nazareth. There's no lakes or oceans around Nazareth. So they're like, you know what, Jesus? Let's go over this side. But and then Jesus falls asleep. And I think, you know what? The disciples encouraged him to have a little nap. I think they're like, Jesus, why don't you go to the back of the boat? There's some nice cushions. And I think they just went and they stroked, Bartholomew or whatever, stroked his forehead and kind of did that thing on your eyes, eyelids or something. And now I lay me down to... I think that this... Because here's the thing. I think these guys were in charge. It was their world now. They know what they're doing. This carpenter has not a clue. He knows how to bang a nail, but he doesn't know how to trim a sail. And I think they're out there and thinking, Jesus... why don't you stay near but get out of the way? It's kind of the MO of some people, eh? Stay near but get out of the way. I'm in charge of me. Here's one of the worst phrases evangelicals came up with. I'm a thoroughgoing evangelical. I'm not going to leave the fold or whatever, so I can critique it from within, okay? Here's one of the worst phrases we ever came up with. Invite Jesus into your life. How boring that must be for Jesus. What are we doing today? More pickleball. You know what? Have your cool thing that you kind of renew in. We all do. I'm not dissing it. But how much pickleball and golf can Jesus endure? If all a faith commitment is I invite Jesus into my life, and I know there's, John language, he comes and abides in you and stuff, but how boring, much more boring could we make it for Jesus? He doesn't, it's not we invite Jesus into our life, he invites us into his. Come follow me. Where? I'm not going to tell you. Just keep your eyes on me. Do you know that if you actually live by that, if you follow Jesus, he will do exceedingly abundantly more than you ask or imagine. He may not give you some lucrative job. You may not become famous, all of that sort of stuff. Your life will just become infinitely more interesting because his life's infinitely interesting. And my life isn't. Jesus, come and follow me around all day. Of course he falls asleep. They're in charge. They're in charge. But this storm hits, and it's got to be a woozy of a massive squall. Because these are seasoned fishermen. This Peter, James, and John's that boat. They grew up with Zebedee. Zebedee probably had them in that boat before they had language, before they could walk. They knew everything about the Sea of Galilee. They knew how to boat work. They knew how to, see the winds and knew exactly what was happening. They could read the whole thing. Their whole life has been lived on that sea or on that lake. And suddenly they're freaked out. So freaked out they wake up the carpenter. Here's what all crises are. And you might be in one right now. All crises is where you thought you were in charge until this happened. The familiar became strange and dangerous suddenly, and you don't know what to do. You were master of this situation until this moment. And then suddenly some new thing happens, and you have not a clue. And guess what you ought to do then? You got to wake up Jesus. You just got to wake him up. In fact, I can tell you a very quick test of whether you're on mission with Jesus to begin with. If you're on mission with Jesus, he has to stay awake. If you're not, he can fall asleep. If he's just following you, if you're in charge, he can fall asleep. But you will guaranteed wake him up when the crisis hits. But why not actually just ask him to stay awake for the whole thing? Because you're on mission with you. So Jesus goes, and Jesus knows he has to battle the storm to get to the one man that nobody else wants. That's the point. The one person that nobody loves, his parents have given up on him, his family, his community, they've just we can't, done. He's such an addict, he's such a junkie, he's such an evil man. Done. Never want to see him again. And Jesus makes a trip through a blistering storm just to get one man. I had this insight quite recently that you know that you're living under grace and not under law when your prayer for your enemies goes like this. If you're living under the law, you pray Old Testament prayers about your enemies. You know what Old Testament prayers about your enemies are? God, get them. God, you see how mean they are. You see how bad they are. You get them. Psalm after psalm's about that, right? God, get them. Here's what a person prays when they're living under grace. Oh, Jesus, get them. Nobody else can reach them. Nobody else can go that deep down. You know what Jesus did between Good Friday and Easter Sunday? Between dying on the cross and being raised from the dead and getting out of the grave? He went to hell. This is actually a doctrine of the church that we could recover in Protestantism. He went to hell. It's called the harrowing of hell. And there's a rich teaching about that. He actually, and we do have scriptures, he went down and preached to the captives. Now, I can tell you what he didn't preach. I can tell you what his text wasn't. He didn't go down and say, ha, 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 sucks to be you. Jesus went to hell, and he says, you know what? Guess who has the keys to hell and Hades? I've got them, and you're out. I'm getting you out. It's a jailbreak. Jesus goes to hell to set captives free. He surely can go over to Syria tonight and get Legion. Not God get them, but Jesus, would you get them? Nobody else, no other power on this planet can reach that person. Only you, Jesus. When you start praying those prayers, something switched over in your heart, and you are on mission with Jesus. In the midst of this crisis where everything's falling apart and the people in charge don't know what they're doing, some questions come up. They're piercing questions. And they're questions that tend to arise when we're actually doing stuff with Jesus. They're not doubt questions or faith questions, but they come when we're actually doing mission with Jesus. Two questions he asks, and not just in the story, I think he asks them every time when we get into this crisis, are we going to go to the other side or not? He asked two questions, and the disciples asked two questions. Here's our questions. The disciples here, our questions were on ministry with Jesus, on mission with Jesus. The first question is, do you not care? Do you not see what's going on here? Do you not care if I die? Do you not care if I go broke? Do you not care if, about my health? Do you not care if we lose the house? Do you not, hello, Jesus, are you, wake up. Do you not care about this? We've put everything into this. We've poured out. You must have had moments like just Jenny and Jake, where we've given everything. We've just, and it's like, what, Jesus, are you on, are you around, are you even in the boat right now? Surely you've asked it, do you not care? Now, that's a life question, but it's really a discipleship question. Don't think you're going to follow Jesus and you're never going to ask to do you not care. It actually gets more intense because you think we have this thing going, Jesus. You see me, you love me, I'm faithful to you, you're to the faithful, you show. What the heck is this then? Do you not care? And the second question they ask is, who is this anyhow? That. Did you know he could do that? I didn't know. Why didn't we wake him anyhow? He was going to die. Why did he can actually calm things down? Who is this? It's a discipleship question because Jesus, especially when you're on mission, is always going to take you further into knowing and discovering who he is. He's going to do stuff that you didn't. Maybe in some kind of abstract way you thought he could do it, but you didn't know he could actually do it here. When I was a pastor, there were people coming to the church, and I'm like, I don't know, Jesus. I don't know if you can do anything here. And then watch him transform a life. To be honest, the ministry my wife leads New Story Community, some of the women come in, and I'm like, not sure. And then we watch the life being transformed in the power of Christ and a loving community. And it's like, who is this? I didn't know he could calm that down. Only Jesus. So those are discipleship questions. They're not actually doubt questions. They're journey with Jesus questions. Do you not care? Please get involved soon. And who is this? I didn't know you could also do that. The questions Jesus asks are quite pointed. Why are you so afraid? Is the first one. Why are you so afraid? I've battled fear all my life. And it's always at those moments where you know Christ is calling you out further. And you're thinking, I like my safe life. And every time it's a question, why are you so afraid? And then this second question he asks is, do you still have no faith? That seems like the most unfair question ever, because these guys have kind of shucked the whole business to go follow him. We sold our business to you. Did you know? And he's like, yeah, you're hardly catching anything unless I showed up anyhow. But we left everything. Peter actually says it, but we left everything to follow you. Everything. Why? What do you mean have no faith? Here's the thing. When you're on mission with Jesus, he's always calling you to greater courage and to greater trust. Always. It never ends. It never ends. Now, Cheryl and I in our 60s are in a ministry like none other that we've had before. And it is just, Cheryl, is a call to greater courage and greater trust. And he has to be awake for this journey. Let's go to the other side, though. Let's go to the other side. A few years ago, I was speaking at a Teen Challenge banquet in Kelowna. Some Teen Challenge guys this morning, I had just connected with them after. I love that ministry. Love what I mean, that's transformation there. And I was speaking at this big church, and it was a fundraising thing, and I'm supposed to say something that, people afterward open their wallets and whatnot. I'm not good at that, so don't hire me for that thing. But I'm speaking, and I chose to speak on this story, actually the Legion story, not this one, but the Legion story. This guy that nobody wants, and he's so twisted, he's so broken, he's so evil, he's so demon-packed. Nobody wants him except Jesus. So I speak on that, but I'm noticing I'm up on a high podium or platform, and there's a really good-looking, strapping guy. I talked to him earlier. He had done the Teen Challenge program. He had been a year in it, and then he was now a leader in it. A really great guy, but he's ugly crying. He's down here just like heaving, and his lovely wife's trying to console him. He can't be consoled. So I finished my talk. I come down. I said, "Man, what's going on?" And he falls apart again, just like 5 minutes of crying. And finally, he says, he talks about this amazing transformation he's experienced through Teen Challenge and how this has turned everything around for him. But he says, I've started to realize that ministry to drug addicts is kind of like a lot of people want to sort of be involved in that. He says that, we do these banquets, and these people will give tens of thousands of dollars tonight. Churches support us, individuals support us. He actually said it's kind of sexy. People want to be involved in some way. And then he falls apart again, starts crying. And he says, but as you're speaking, it confirms something that God's been saying to me for quite a while. And I've been saying no to him. I've just been resisting it. And it became very clear as you're speaking that I have to say yes to Jesus. And I said, tell me, and he says, I have to go to the other side. And I said, well, tell me. He says, the Lord's calling me to minister to sex offenders. What I have to tell you is at that very moment, this is my first thought, I didn't mean that far. I didn't mean that. No, that's beyond the pale. I didn't, no. And instantly, the Spirit of God rebukes me with this question, is my arm too short? And then he asks me, why are you so afraid? And do you still have no faith? And I said, who is this? Who is this? Church, I don't know what the Lord's stirring in you, and I don't know how far the other side is for you. I'm just telling you, it's probably further than you think. And you don't know, and he won't reveal, because he probably would say just a flat out no. But I can tell you this, he is utterly trustworthy. He will test you. He will call you, but he will give you the courage, and he will give you the faith. So why don't we just go to the other side?